Welcome to the J Sizzle Basketball Podcast. It's been a little while since I put out a podcast, but I'm back and I'm ready to get back on the regular schedule and start putting out podcasts as frequently as I used to. So I'm really excited to get back. Make sure, always again, as I always mention in every podcast, make sure you guys follow the Instagram, follow or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and give these videos a like for me. I have posted a good amount on the website. There's some new articles up. There's a new article about J.C. Jackson, the New England Patriots corner. There's some articles about Aaron Rodgers that are up there. I'm going to put an article tonight about the Detroit Lions and their future and what they're looking at the next couple of years, and then also do a podcast on them tomorrow as well. But today we're gonna talk about basketball. That's why I said J Sizzle Basketball. And then if you guys have any questions, make sure you go ahead and, like normal, just ask them in the comment section on the podcast, on YouTube. Ask them on Instagram, DM them to me, whatever you have, any questions or any ideas that you want me to talk about next. Go ahead and give me those ideas, and we can move forward from there. So the topic I want to stick to today is I want to talk about Zion Williamson a little bit, and what JJ Redick said about Zion Williamson today on First Take. And then I'm going to give my opinion on Zion Williamson and talk about how I agree with JJ Redick's take and just further kind of build off of his take. So the issue really kind of arose when you had Zion Williamson. The news come out about Zion a couple days ago when C.J. McCollum was traded to New Orleans in exchange for Josh Hart and more. You had rumors come out of New Orleans that stated that Zion Williamson still has not contacted C.J. McCollum. C.J. McCollum came out and said it himself that he was not that Zion did not reach out to him yet, but he was able to reach out to people close to Zion, and he was hoping that Zion was going to reach out to him soon, or there was going to be some form of communication between the two of them, whether it was in person or by text, right? So that brought up, that really got JJ Redick upset on First Take, as you could tell, because JJ Redick was talking about the fact that he played with Zion for a year in New Orleans, and he was talking about the fact that it's not fair for Zion to do something like that to his teammates, because you have a guy, CJ McCollum, who JJ Redick talked about, top 50 player in the world. In my opinion, he might even be top 40, right? He's in that, that 35 to 50 range, and in that player range. I think everybody in the world can agree with that, whether you put him around 35 or 50, everyone can agree he's definitely top 50 without a question. Right? And he's supposed to be this next big thing for New Orleans to help them build a so-called big three, right, in New Orleans with him, Ingram, and Zion. And Zion doesn't make the correct, steps in communicating with him and reaching out to him, right? And like JJ Redick said, the bare minimum you need to do is just reach out and send a text and say, hey, can't wait to have you on the team. I'm going to be really excited when I get back from injury. We're going to have a great year. We're going to do great together, right? Those are the simple kind of texts that I think JJ Redick was talking about that Zion needed to make, and he didn't make it. And JJ Redick talked about the maturity a little bit in that with Zion, and I think when you look at Zion, you look at a guy who's missed a lot more games than he's played so far in his 3 seasons in the NBA. You look at a guy who pretty soon, I hate to say it, he's incredible when he's on the court, but health is a big part of the way you play the game. And we'll go further into that in a second. But you look into, his 3 years so far, and I think right now we're looking at a guy who's a bust, to be honest with you. Looking at a guy who shouldn't have gone number one. Looking at a guy who's not the best player out of his draft class. Healthy or not, John Morant's better. Healthy or not, Tyler Herro's better. And healthy or not, RJ Barrett's better too, in my opinion. You can stretch anything you want to stretch, right? You can agree with me. You can disagree with me. And, it is what it is. At the end of the day, those guys are better than Zion. And guess what? There's another guy that's better than Zion out of that draft class too, and his name is Darius Garland. He just made his first All-Star game. All those guys, in my opinion, are all better than Zion. I think, obviously, Ja is obvious, right? There's nobody can argue anymore who's better, Ja or Zion. There's no arguing that. Ja's 10 miles better. It's not even close. Tyler Herro's better because I think Tyler Herro, his ability to score the basketball, shoot the basketball, something, Zion can score, but he can't shoot still, right? Something that Tyler Herro can do is shoot the basketball. While Tyler Herro's not a great defender at all, he's probably a little bit better of a defender than Zion, because Zion's a very bad defender. And RJ Barrett, we've seen RJ Barrett, he's a top-tier defender in the NBA. He's a guy who can give you, most nights he's going to give you 20-plus. He's averaging, I think, 18, but a lot of nights, he's going to be a guy that can easily give you 20-plus most nights. And then you look at how great he is defensively. He's efficient, right? He can get to the line. So I would rather have RJ than Zion, too. And then you talk about Darius Garland. That's obvious, right? Darius Garland and an ability to score just as well as Zion, in my opinion. While he may not put up as many points, I think a lot of these guys, just because you don't put up as many points, as crazy as this statement's going to sound, doesn't mean you're not as good as a scorer. You have to look at the situations that these guys are on in their teams. You also kind of have to look at how they score. Yeah, Zion's a freak inside the paint and scoring the basketball, but the fact that he can't shoot the ball, the fact that he can't get everyone else involved, kind of takes away from his offensive power and kind of also in a way takes away from his ability to score because he's so one-dimensional in his scoring. You look at a guy like Giannis, yeah, a lot of people can argue Giannis is one-dimensional, but he really isn't. He's added a very solid mid-range jumper to his game. 3-point shot's not there yet, but he's added a very solid mid-range jumper to his game. And Giannis averages 6.5 assists a game. He gets everybody on the court involved. So Giannis is one of the best 3 players in the world. So that's not even a comparison there. But when you look at a guy like Zion, you're looking at a guy who really he scores 27 a night last year, but it's all points in the paint. And it's all, I don't know. I just, when you look at an era like when Shaq played in, right? Yeah, him scoring all those points in the paint, Shaq literally scored every single point of his career basically inside the paint, right? He probably made a handful of mid-range jumpers in his career, but that was a different era. We're in an era now where you need to learn how to shoot the basketball if you're going to play at a high level. And if you can't shoot the basketball, you need to be able to play defense at a high level. You need to be able to pass at a high level and get others involved. He does neither of those things. How valuable is Zion Williamson in reality? Like I said, he's a good player when he's healthy. But when I talk about his value, I'm talking about his value for the future. How, even if he were to stay healthy, let's say he stays healthy the rest of his career, how valuable is a guy that is super one-dimensional in the way he scores, hasn't ever changed up his game, and it's just, you got to look at it from that perspective too. And if you're New Orleans, I know New Orleans is freaking out right now because they just added CJ McCollum. They thought that Zion was going to come back by now. They thought that by now, before the year started, that Zion would have already played the majority of the games this year before the year started, which didn't happen. That foot surgery was only supposed to have him out for like a month or two. And then all of a sudden it gets pushed back. And now I'm hearing that he's going to need surgery again in the next couple of weeks. Zion Williamson's not going to play the rest of the season. And in my opinion, Zion Williamson will never play in a New Orleans Pelicans jersey again. And I think it's based on the simple fact that A, he doesn't want to be there. B, I think he kind of has a bad attitude towards the team, right? I understand sometimes you don't want to be in a certain situation, which is looking like what Zion is having, the issue Zion's having right now. But that doesn't mean that you ignore your teammates. That doesn't mean that you ignore your coaching staff. It doesn't mean that you just completely ignore everything, right? I understand at the end of the day, when the lottery happened a couple years ago and New Orleans had the number 1 pick, and they had terrible odds to get the number 1 pick, but they got it. I understand Zion wanted to play for the New York Knicks. Everyone knows that. That was his goal. It was his dream. He wanted to play for the Knicks, right? You could tell in the reaction of the lottery when the Knicks didn't get the number 1 pick and the Pelicans got it. Zion wanted to play for the New York Knicks. There's no debate about that. But now, he's not on the Knicks. The Pelicans got the number 1 pick. They took him, so he has to adjust to the situation he's in. He has to adjust to the situation he's in. And the whole thing with the reports that came out last year about his family not liking the organization and the city of New Orleans. I mean, it's all adding up time and time again. It's all adding up piece by piece to show that Zion maybe is not really mature enough for the NBA spotlight. It's too much spotlight at one time for him. And also we're starting to maybe kind of figure out that he's not the kind of player we thought he was in reality, right? And I don't mean this to, make fun or come at Zion the whole time in this podcast, but I'm just being honest in these takes and what I think. I think you look at Zion and you look at a guy who is a bust. Right now, he's labeled as a bust. He has missed 30 or 40 more games than he's played. He's a bust right now. I mean, I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, he's a bust. Unless he can get back on the court, he can get healthy, and he can come on the court and play his game, right? Unless that happens, he's a bust. Like I said, him playing his game, I don't think he's as good as the 3 or 4 guys I mentioned that went in his draft class, but he's still good. So he's not a bust, but he may be just not number 1 material. But he ain't no bust. But if he can't stay healthy, he continues the track that he's on right now in his career, he's definitely a bust. The last thing you want to see Zion is have a career where he can never stay healthy. And a lot of guys, when they get hurt, almost not a lot of guys, just about every single guy when they get hurt, a lot of it is just because of the fact that they get unlucky and you work really hard, and some people just have, bad luck. But for Zion, it seems like the whole thing is the diet and the issue with eating and the issue with gaining weight. I mean, he's above 330 pounds from what I've heard. And the Pelicans have been really concerned for the last couple months that he's continuously eating all the time and he can't lose weight and that he's putting on a lot of weight. You have to realize Zion's game relies on his ability to get to the rim. Zion, for his size and his build, he has one of the quickest first steps we've ever seen for his build. That is what puts Zion's game above other guys that are his size. He has a quick first step, a ridiculously quick first step. And when you put on weight, what happens to that quick first step? Yeah, you gain more strength, right? You're stronger. Maybe you can body more people in the paint, right? Bully people around in the paint a little more. But his first step is what made his game, to be honest with you. His first step. He can run almost 20 miles an hour. First step, you know how quick his first step is off the dribble, and then he can get to the rim and throw it down or lay it in? That's what made his game. And when you put on all that weight, you slow your first step down so much, so now he loses his ability to get to the rim. That takes away almost all of his game. Now he's going to have to post up if he wants to score. He's not really a post-up guy. I mean, he scores a little bit in the post, but not that much. And he doesn't have a jump shot. So, and when you put on more weight, I mean, how is that going to help your jump shot? Right? So you're just looking at a bunch of different things that, it's not a good situation. It's really not a good situation in New Orleans right now. And they're dealing with a lot of difficult things, I think, over there. I think they're really happy to grab CJ and get him over from Portland. I know they didn't want to see Josh Hart go, but that's how, you had to give up Josh Hart if you wanted to get CJ McCollum. And I thought it was a pretty good trade for New Orleans, but I thought it was like a trade where you need Zion to be present and to be playing and to be focused if CJ McCollum's going to work in New Orleans. If CJ McCollum, if you brought in CJ McCollum and Zion's not even going to play and he's not even going to be healthy, then at the end of the day, what did you bring in CJ McCollum for? Right? He brought in CJ McCollum so you could have a chance to contend. At the end of the day, as crazy as that statement that just came out of my mouth came out of my mouth, right? It's a true statement that came out of my mouth. The New Orleans Pelicans brought CJ McCollum in so they could contend for an NBA championship. You don't build an NBA team to contend for a bottom seed. You don't build an NBA team to contend for a first-round exit. You don't build an NBA team to contend for a second-round exit. You build and make big-time trades like New Orleans made to build a championship team. And New Orleans thought that when they traded for CJ McCollum, that they would be able to build a championship team around Jonas Valanciunas, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, as well as Zion Williamson. They thought they could build a championship team around that. Well, Zion Williamson is going to be a huge part of that team, and if he can't stay healthy and he can't be on the floor, then all of a sudden you lose that part of what you were trying to build for a championship, and all of a sudden your championship aspirations are out of the window. In my opinion, New Orleans doesn't have championship aspirations even with that team that I labeled. Even if Zion's fully healthy and playing his best, that's not a championship team. That's probably 7-8 seed that loses in the first round, and maybe 1 year they can get out of the first round, but they'll lose in the second. They'll never get past the second. But that's not the point. The point of it is the fact that New Orleans brought him in there to contend for a championship. They didn't bring him in there to contend for a 6-7 seed. They brought him in there to contend for a championship. Right? And CJ McCollum said apparently he wanted to go there because he thought it was a good chance for him to, play winning basketball. So on both sides, both CJ McCollum and the Pelicans agreed that bringing him in there was a big thing for their team to help get them to that next level and hopefully compete for a championship. But again, if Zion can't stay healthy, the whole thing gets thrown out of the window. And then I want to, that was it for Zion. I want to move on to the New Orleans Pelicans a little bit more here. I want to talk about Brandon Ingram a little bit. The kind of season Brandon Ingram's having, right? 22.1 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, 5.4 assists. Before I get into the field goal percentages, I want to talk a little bit about one thing about Brandon Ingram's game that has really impressed me over the last couple years. Is he's leading the Pelicans in assists, by the way, is assists. He's become a very solid passer the last couple of years, and he doesn't turn it over a lot. And if you watch games, even when he doesn't get assists, he makes a lot of really good passes, and he makes a lot of good decisions with the ball in his hands. Brandon Ingram's over the last couple of years, honestly, in the last 2 or 3 years, has started to become one of my favorite players in the league because I feel like he's always underrated. People never talk about him when they talk about, some of the best small forwards in the league. And I feel like his name deserves to be mentioned there. I think Brandon Ingram is one of those players who plays at an extremely high level every single night, gives his all on both ends, and just never really gets the recognition because he's playing in New Orleans, right? And then, the last year, even though Zion's been hurt, everything's been about Zion the last couple of years, all the hype around him and everything, so it's taken a lot away from Brandon Ingram, when in reality, Brandon Ingram's honestly been the best player on that team the last 3 years, right? So to go a little further into Brandon Ingram this season, right? Shooting 44% field goal percentage. You can live with that. That's good. 33% for three. Okay, there needs to be improvement there, right? But you're talking about a guy who's got one of the best mid-range jump shots in the league. That's fine. And even him shooting 33%, he's making 1.5 threes a night. Yeah, he could bump that percentage a little bit, but it's not horrid, right? And then free throw percentage is at 81%. That's very solid. So, Brandon Ingram's a guy who, like I mentioned, has one of the best mid-range jump shots in the league. He's got a great handle, good step back. He can get to his spots whenever he wants. He's got a lot of length on him, so he can shoot over guys. He can post up. He's got a good post fade shot on him as well. And he's starting to improve his ability to play on the defensive end of the floor as well, which is a big key factor as well, because that's something where he kind of struggled with the last couple of years. Well, he's, slowly and steadily improving his defensive end, or his defense for the New Orleans Pelicans. So, before I wrap it up, that's really what it is. What I talked about with New Orleans. It's, it's Zion Williamson mainly, and that's the big discussion with the New Orleans Pelicans. We're getting in towards the end, the last 20, 30 games of the season now, and we kind of need to see if Zion's going to play the rest of the year. More than likely, like I said, 99% he's not going to play the rest of the year, but we need to also kind of see where it's going to go from here. What is the future hope for Zion Williamson? Is the offseason in New Orleans going to be bleak? Is it going to be a really sad offseason where they trade Zion Williamson and they just move on from him? Or is it going to be an offseason where they decide to keep Zion Williamson and see what they can do moving forward with him and see if he really wants to play for that organization? Because like I said earlier, it does not seem like he wants to play for that organization. It does not seem like New Orleans wants him anymore. It seems like it's going to be a mutual part of ways in New Orleans this summer, in my opinion. I think they will trade Zion Williamson. I don't know what they'll trade him for, but I can tell you this right here, right now. As talented as Zion Williamson is, I don't think there's going to be as many teams as you think calling about Zion Williamson because of his inability to stay healthy and because of his inability to, stay motivated about the game of basketball. If you can't keep your body right, then how motivated are you to be great at the game of basketball? So a lot of questions to be answered this offseason for New Orleans, and especially right now as well. And hopefully those questions get answered. And make sure you guys go ahead and put in the comments of the podcast. Tell me what you think about the Zion situation. Tell me if you think it's going to get resolved. Tell me if you think he's going to get traded in the offseason. Or tell me what you think is going to happen. It's a very interesting thing. And also tell me what you think about Brandon Ingram's game. And answer this question for me. Is Brandon Ingram the most underrated player in the league? I think he is. But I want you guys to go ahead and answer that question for me in the comments, and I'll respond to you guys and let you guys know what I think, and we can build a discussion from there. So thank you very much for tuning in. A new podcast coming tomorrow, and make sure you check that out as well.